What's good, beautiful people? I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. Today, I want to talk about how you can stand out in your career and what does that specifically look like. And really and truly, this comes down to how do you position yourself? How do you present yourself? How are you perceived? Three P's, of course. And with that in mind, it's thinking about how do I become not just an expert, not just somebody who provides value, but a real professional. I genuinely believe that professionalism is not just about being suited and booted, it's not just about etiquette, but it's about how you make an individual feel or a group of people feel when you are in the room, whether this is you being online or offline. Okay, so thinking about appearance, thinking about communication, thinking about delivery, thinking about work ethic, thinking about your sort of like emotional intelligence, so to speak, thinking about your overall brand. This is almost like a framework in terms of what professionalism looks like. Okay, and so we're gonna break this down and think about what this specifically looks like. Now for me, when I'm thinking about sort of like how I act within certain situations, whether it's in a working environment or whatever it may be, I understand that the soft skills, okay, are things that what allow me to win people over. Okay, so people have said that I have the ability to conversate pretty well with individuals, or I'm able to negotiate or influence individuals because I'm not just some formal person who's talking a certain way, whatever it may be. I have the ability to have the informal nature and relate to people and break bread, whether it's my laugh or the smile or allowing people to say what they need to say. As a Harvard Business Review study once said, 85% of all communication is centered around the sort of like the cues, the behavioral cues, and the body language, and all of those softer little things, as opposed to the really hard stuff that sometimes we count on. And so, bearing that stuff in mind is super, super, super important and key. So, when it comes to being a professional, amongst anything else, amongst the appearance and everything else, you have to be able to win trust and serve a certain level of reliability in what you're doing. And sometimes even being vulnerable to a degree, okay? And of course, that comes with a certain etiquette. My friend Katrina talks about etiquette all the time. And etiquette really is a behavioral code, a code that signifies a certain level of respect, integrity, dignity, all of these different things, and that I'm willing to help you. And I know that you may do the same for me. But of course, if there is a reciprocal nature, then this is where we're going to have a dynamic effect where we're going to gain some positive rewards. So this is what we're thinking about when it comes to professionalism. Why? Because we're talking about the whole idea of standing out. Now, when thinking about all of this stuff, I think the first things you need to start thinking about is how do you show reliability? Okay, what does reliability look like? If I was thinking about friendship, okay, think about your friends. Which friends within your group are reliable? What key attributes and skills are they showing? So you may say, well, they're there for me when, I need them. They are on time when I'm meeting up with them when it comes to outings and stuff. They are consistent in what they do and how they appear. So these are all things that pop up. But the clear thing is that they show consistency in the positive spectrum. So when you are within a working environment, you have to show a certain level of consistency and reliability. That being, if there are certain deliverables, objectives, or whatever it may be that need to be met, you are meeting them. And if not just meeting them, you are smashing them. Because you have a plan, you have the work ethic, and all the different ingredients that enable you to position yourself to deliver, okay? You're also on time with stuff. So maybe you're utilizing tools and or people to ensure that you're on time. This is why we have calendars. This is why we have line management and hierarchy or accountability buddies or mastermind groups, whatever it may be. There are things there to help you stay on track. And you also commit to a cause. I've described this before. You have the discipline and you have the heart resonance to ensure that you are propelled to take action and do what needs to be done long after the initial feeling has gone. And so with all of this stuff in mind, there is a certain level of reliability that people have in you when it comes to you doing the job, you doing the task. The second thing is a certain level of competence. And I've spoken about this before. Competence equals confidence in many situations. And really what that means is that you're able to define the micro skills required in order for you to achieve. But it's not only just those things. You also have a two-pronged attack when it comes to competence. The first sort of like approach is that you utilize aligned methodologies, aligned frameworks, aligned processes that make sense in the world that you are operating within. In English, what that means is if you are working within an environment that requires project management, then you're using something like a PMP framework or a Prince2 framework or an Agile framework to deliver on those deliverables. And then there's the other sort of like side of things where you're showing great problem solving skills. So in this instance, there isn't necessarily a strict way to do it, but the way you think and how you manage the situation in ambiguity and complexity is done in such a way where it feels like I can trust you, or the person can trust you, or the group can trust you. So your problem solving skills are on point. And so when you align those two, it's not that you're untouchable, but you're in a very good position because people trust in your ability to deliver. And so competence equals confidence in that way, not just for yourself, but for other people, which means that you get measurable results, you get benefits that are realized, you get outcomes that are seen. And so that's another thing. A third thing to bear in mind is this whole idea of integrity. And really, when I think about integrity, I'm talking about honesty to self, because if you can start with honesty to self, then other people can see that level of honesty too. Okay, really important stuff. And this is where we get into the whole realm of authenticity. I've spoken about it before, where we talk about authentic living, self-alienation, that doesn't become a thing, and also not getting influenced by external factors, but making sure that you have the right level of self-monitoring so that you know that you are being yourself, but not to a point where it's so raw that it's off-putting. Okay, so there is a bit of social normality that is amongst all of this stuff, whether we want to agree with that or not. And so integrity is key. Like, how can you stick to the cause? How can you make sure that you are your sincere self and deliver on what needs to be done? If we think about integrity, I think it comes from the Latin word integritas. I'm not sure, you can check that up yourself. But the point I'm making is it's something to do with wholeness and completeness. Okay, so integrity does not exist if you're not your whole complete self. Okay, and I say to a degree, because can you ever truly be yourself? Well, you can definitely be on a range that is within a scope or space that feels more like you. And if people can feel that, they're more attracted to you, because what's attractive right now? Sincere individuals, authentic individuals, people who we believe we can trust in, because you've allowed yourself to open your heart. And so there is a vulnerability, there's a possibility you could be damaged, but people want to see that there are other people like them. And how do they know that? They know that, they sense that through signs, through skills, through signals of being their authentic self, which is aligned to this wholesome idea of being integral. And of course, there's this certain level of respect, okay? And, you know, a lot of people say respect is earned, but there is a guy called Leo Tolstoy. He was, I don't remember where he was from, but he was somebody who did philosophy and all that stuff back in the day. And he once said that respect should be in an empty place where love should be. In other words, if you can't at least love someone, respect them. Now, if it's earned, if you want people to respect you as an individual, then all of that other stuff that I've highlighted before becomes really, really important. Because if you gain the respect of the stakeholders within your portfolio career, then they're more likely going to consider you for certain things because they see you as this individual who can deliver. So respect is a really, really important thing. So out of all of the different stuff that I've highlighted, okay, whether it's reliability, competence, integrity, and respect, you should think to yourself, if I was to rate myself out of 10, out of all of these different, I guess, factors, okay, or drivers, how highly would I rate myself? And you'd need to look for evidence for this stuff, because if you're not rating yourself highly, then my friend, you got some work to do. Okay. And really this is centered around, I would say, the competence piece. Okay. Yes, of course, you have to work on self. And that is done through a whole multitude of stuff. You can watch my latest video, which talks about this stuff, the video before this one. But really and truly, competence is key. Okay. Whether this is in the soft skills realm or the harder skills realm. And so you have to sort of like get the, I guess, the courses, the programs, the repetition, speaking to the right people to enable you to have not just the understanding, but the delivery to practice on these competencies. So really, really, really big stuff. I guess the next thing I want to talk about, just looking at my notes, is this whole idea of branding. Okay. And I've covered this in many different like forms. But branding comes down to understanding what the higher self looks like. Who do you want to become? How do you want to become this person? Why do you want to become this person? Answering these questions succinctly. Then that sort of like tears into this whole idea of IKIGAI. Okay, I got corrected by my friend for spelling it wrong, so I'm going to make sure I say it right. So IKIGAI is centered around this whole idea of your vocation, okay, your calling, your sense of being, your reason for being. And so definitely do this. Research the IKIGAI Venn diagram. Some of you have done this already, so that's fine. But really understand and exercise like what allows you to understand what that succinct point is. What does the market want? Okay, what are you good at? What are your natural curiosities or passions? You know, what different strengths do you have? When you sort of coalesce all this stuff, whether you write a list or not, you can get to a point or funnel down to points where you understand what is your specific niche that you could focus on. What resonates with you the most? What makes your heart sing, so to speak? And so with all of that information, what you start to do is, if you don't have the experience already as an example, you start to develop that sort of skill set so you can practice. It's about practicing, okay? They talk about this in the book Mastery by Robert Greene, okay? You have to get to a point where you're practicing this stuff and you're in the apprenticeship stage and you're just trying to get as many results as possible so you can learn from this stuff. Because this learning then allows you to determine what is your framework. Yes, you may be taught a specific type of framework, but you may even develop your own philosophy for life or philosophy for how you deliver on something that you implement within a working space. And this is why you have to go back and review and look at the themes and all this stuff there. And we're blessed to be in a space where we have AI that helps us develop this stuff, okay? So this is really, really important. So with this philosophy, with this theory of stuff, you then want to move into a space where you share your thoughts, you share your ideas. This could be lessons learned for the day. This could be stuff that you've learned from the studies or the experience. This could be conversations that you've had. This could be testimonials or whatever it may be. You do this stuff online in order for you to get an idea of the feedback that you get or the validation that you get. And even if you don't do this online, you do this based on sharing this information within your workspace. Ask for forgiveness later and see how people respond. You get that feedback. It's the feedback that you're wanting. It's not just the sort of like praise and validation. The validation element gives you an idea in terms of what you need to do more of, because doing more of that stuff gives you the opportunities that you need, whether this is online or offline. And so you just share this information. Of course, where do you share this information? I've spoken about it within the working space, but you can also do this in networking events and all that kind of jazz there. But it's about consistency, and it's intelligent consistency. Why do I say that? Well, intelligence is centered around changing your behavior based on the conditions of what arrives in your environment. And so you need to understand what allows you to get more success and what stops you from getting more success. And you keep on doing the thing that makes sense in order for you to get more success. And that's what the consistent element is about. So really think about all of this stuff. I'm saying this because I've done this for myself, okay? Once I got into this whole program space, I learned it, I spoke about it. It was 2022, 2023. I was on LinkedIn every single day talking about this stuff, getting this feedback back. Even if you check my YouTube videos back in 2023, 2022, whatever it may be, I was talking about this stuff. I was talking about contracting, all of this kind of jazz. I was getting the feedback. I was also implementing what my theory of implementation looked like when it came to working in different working environments as well. So I'm not just saying this because these are points that I've written down, whatever it may be. I'm saying this because this is what makes sense to me. And so this is all part of your professionalism, because there is a clear thread in terms of how you operate. Now, of course, personal branding also comes to the fact that you need to be presentable in what you do. So whether this is what you wear, and this is also sort of like your online stuff or your physical presence. So for me, I'm usually smart casual in terms of my approach, but I know when to like suit up. Okay, I know when to look good when it comes to certain situations. You know, hair's on point, skin is, you know, the skin routine's on point. That's my wife, by the way. You know, you got your suit, your tie, you know, all of that kind of stuff there. The little details make sense. Okay, so you have to know what good looks like for you in a given environment, especially if you're networking stuff. If you're the sort of person that wears a suit every single day, then stick to that, man. Let people believe that's who you are. Let yourself believe that's who you are. Do you need to wear a suit every day? No. If that's part of your brand, if that's the vibe that is picked up, then that's the case. And if you're not really quite sure of what you should be doing, then I guess you need to get ideas in terms of what people do within your environments. But I think more importantly, ask the people who you serve. They will give you the feedback. They will give you an understanding, okay? Now, obviously I'm doing these videos. I'm not wearing a suit right now. But the reason why I'm relaxed is because I'm hoping that I'm imparting that I'm being myself. This is why I'm shooting it via my phone. There's kind of like I guess a relatable sort of like nature to it. I'm hoping, at least anyway. And so there's no gimmicks or anything like that. So I'm just shooting straight, no editing. That's part of the brand. That's part of the personal brand that I'm trying to impose upon you guys, okay? And for those of you who are interested, you're hooked, you're watching, you're asking me questions, you're getting value, all of this kind of stuff there. Whereas there are some people who want to do it more editorial style, they're going to look a certain way, and that's their brand, and they attract those different types of people. So sometimes it's thinking about who do you want to attract in your life, and how do you want to show up? What does that actually mean? So thinking about all of this stuff in the context of your career becomes really important. And then you start to understand, actually, this stuff can be engineered. It can be engineered the right way. I was speaking to a really cool man yesterday. And I was helping him with his stuff because he booked in a session and all that stuff. And he was also helping me with my stuff. But the point we made is, when looking at his LinkedIn, there were some clear, distinct things that need to be improved. And that included header. Easy thing to fix. You can go on Canva. Your profile image, easy thing to do. Take a picture on a cream or white background, use removebackground.com and put it onto a white background or yellow, whatever it may be. Headline, make that clear. Have your role, talk about your specialism, have the different qualifications that you have at a minimum. Or you can say, I help X, Y, and Z, da, 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 da. There are loads of different ways to do it, but it depends what you're optimizing for, which is a whole different video. If you checked out my previous video in terms of, I think it's the hidden job market, I speak about that stuff as well. So there are things that can be done. It's about optimizing the opportunities that are available in front of you, offline and online as well. Now, I spoke previously about this whole idea of emotional intelligence, and all that really is your ability to manage your emotions and act accordingly in front of different people. That's all it is. That's why it's emotional intelligence, okay? And so with that in mind, you have to understand what that specifically looks like. Now, why is emotional intelligence really important? It doesn't matter whether you're contracting, permanent, whatever it may be. You need to be able to navigate the workplace. It is a tricky place. When I think about programs and projects, 90% of it is managing people, okay? Or interacting or engaging with different people. And so when we think about emotional intelligence, we have to think about, number one, and this is really the model, how do I sort of like become aware of how I respond to different situations? How do I build that in my reserve, okay? So maybe that is you journal, maybe that is through meditation and prayer, maybe this is through, I don't know, whatever it may be. But there are different ways you can pick this up. But then the second point is, based on that data that I get from the awareness, how do I now sort of like better manage my emotions? What do I specifically do? Maybe there are triggers or cues that are in place that allow you to onset a routine that stops you from doing a certain type of behavior. And then the next thing is, okay, how do I notice or observe other people? What does that specifically look like? How do I pick up those cues? Are there certain behavioral things that I've noticed? Are there certain things that they do or certain events that happen when X happens? And how do I manage those situations? Those management situations look like influencing. They look like negotiating. They look like conflict resolution and management. They look like leadership. They look like all of these different things. And so we have to be cognizant of this stuff. But really and truly, it comes down to really good listening, okay? People love it when you allow them to say what's on their mind, okay? And you're not doing any weird facial stuff. You're letting them be themselves. It also comes down to showing interest. So that comes down to asking great questions, but also summarizing what people say, okay? Feeding it back. So let me get this straight. You were basically saying, because if people feel understood, then they're more likely going to be, I guess, influenced by you as an individual, whether it's for good or evil, okay? That is a fact. And there's also this whole idea of sort of like motivating individuals, okay? Being encouraging by nature. Motivation really stems down to a sense of purpose, autonomy, and what is meaning, okay? This is all based on this book called Drive by Daniel H. Pink. So think about all of this stuff. Emotional intelligence is how do we sort of like interact and communicate effectively, bearing in mind our emotions. That's what it is. And knowing how to change that. Remember what I said about intelligence in terms of that definition. Also, there's going to be this whole idea of just, okay, what does it mean to be a professional within the guise that we're living right now? And this comes down to continuous learning. So this is either based on your knowledge, based on your behaviors, or based on how you show up and how you present yourself. That's really what it comes down to when it comes to this continuous learning. So if there are new things that you can learn, like my friend Michael, yeah, he's another Michael, can you imagine? And Ghanaian too, okay? He's essentially into this whole thing of like looking good, smelling good, being on point, all of that kind of stuff there. It's all part of his brand, you know. He's got this new swanky job, you know, in I don't want to say the location, but it's in central London, should we say, okay? And he has to show up because he's surrounded by people who are in that space, and he wants to give that air of professionalism, quality, that extra je ne sais quoi, you know. He wants to add more quoi to the je ne sais quoi, you know. So with that in mind, he is thinking about his appearance. Now, of course, he knows he can deliver because he's got the testimonials, he's got the accolades, he's got all of this stuff that shows that he is on point. But he wants the other side in order for him to be on point. So what is he doing? What's the point here? He's learning about how can he be even better in terms of his appearance. Because whether we like it or not, people judge us. Okay, people judge us. I said that a bit weird. People judge us. Okay, so learn about how you can improve your sort of like your attractiveness power. Okay, it's really important stuff. And I've written this down here as a motivational quote. It says, "The day you stop learning is the day you start falling behind." And the Lord knows we're not trying to fall behind at all. So I guess the final things I want to talk about is, which is kind of linked to the whole emotional intelligence thing, is your communication. And I think it comes down to your etiquette. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you need to get elocution lessons or all that kind of stuff there. But you need to be very concise with your language. You need to say what you mean and mean what you say. You need to not be quick to talk. And if you are quick to talk, typically what that is doing is creating this vibrato of motivation and encouragement and everything else. But you need to be very deliberate with what you're saying, because when you're deliberate with what you're saying, then you're in a position of where people start to trust you a bit more. And so if you haven't done much public speaking and stuff, and this is why I love YouTube and speaking on this platform, then practice. Okay, you have to be in a position where you're practicing. I always say, if you're practiced in writing, if you're practiced in reading, you're going to be a great speaker because you've got something to talk about. You're not gonna want to just keep this knowledge to yourself. And so it's about developing that rhetoric. Okay, it's about knowing how to position yourself in different situations. So practice the art of writing, practice the art of speaking, practice your presentations beforehand, practice with someone else and get the feedback. Practice. I'm telling you. And you can use ChatGPT to support you. You can use things like DeepSeek or Qwen or Claude or Gemini or whatever you want to use. But that's not going to solve the problem. I promise you, that's not going to improve your communication skills, because when it's all said and done, I just felt like saying that. There was no validity to that at all, you know. But anyway, when it comes to it, should I say, you want to be embarking a certain level of confidence. And that comes from practice. That comes from looking into the detail. That comes from looking at the small stuff and taking it seriously, so you are performing at the highest level. So just practice is what I'm going to say, okay? I've got some other stuff centered around here, which I don't think is necessary because I've spoken about this quite a bit, okay? It's obvious that your reputation is really important and you don't want to mess that up. And there's some other things that can be spoken about as well, which I'm not really going to get into. But really the take-home message, yeah, is centered around being a professional. Be a professional, okay? Expertise is key, but professionalism can get you through the door as well. I'm telling you. And if there is anything that helps you stand out, especially in 2025 and beyond, it is knowing how to navigate and work the room. Because we live in this shiny eye syndrome society. We live in this society where it's like you can do whatever you want and all of that stuff there. And some people may be even mistaking my message for that. Okay. There's an element of me that believes that, but there's an element where there's a certain level of foundation setting and substance setting and all of that kind of stuff that is required. Create substance for your profession based on everything I've just said and more. I'm sure you've got your own ideas, but you have to know how to work the room. So I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully that's given you some ideas. If you ever want support in this field, in this space of developing your portfolio career, of getting to a stage where you're transitioning to get that new contract or whatever it may be, then check out some of the links below. And of course, if you want to see more things centered around portfolio careers, contracting, resilience, leadership, all of that kind of stuff there, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.